Hi there, and welcome to episode 75 of B2B SaaS Marketing Snacks. I'm Brian Graff, I'm the CEO of Kalungi, and I'm back with Kalungi's co-founder, Stein Hendricks, who's a serial SaaS marketing executive and ex-Microsoft product marketing leader. Today we talk about finance. Not really, but we do talk about bank accounts. Specifically, there's a concept in Steven Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that says that each relationship has an emotional bank account. Positive actions build trust and basically deposit into the account, while negative actions deplete trust and essentially withdraw from the account. Well, the same concept applies just as well to marketing. It is often undervalued and sometimes even forgotten about in today's age of AI, channels, tactics, and being as efficient as possible with your marketing dollars and bandwidth while trying to attribute all of your actions as closely to revenue as possible. So we're taking you back to one of the most core principles of marketing and discussing how to make sure your relationship bank account with prospects and customers is always positive. Let's get into it. Okay, so Stein, thank you again for being here as always. Today we are talking about this concept of deposits versus withdrawals in the relationship, in marketing's relationship with prospects. So there's an adage, I guess, in marketing that I don't have the attribution for and I need to go find and put in the show notes. But the concept is basically that every relationship is like a bank account in marketing, and you can either deposit in your interactions or you can withdraw, right? And so you need that balance to be positive so that you can withdraw, so that you can ask and have the prospect do what you want or convince the prospect to do something, right? So the idea is that, when you add value, when you help make your prospect's life easier, you are depositing into the bank account. But when you ask them to do something, get on a phone call, download something, give away their information, right? That is a withdrawal. And so everything in marketing is a constant push and pull between deposits and withdrawals. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how to find the right balance there and how to add the right amount of value so that you can make withdrawals without, spending so much time adding value that you just leave money on the table, basically. So I've seen this in a few different scenarios in the B2B SaaS space. And usually the ones that I think are the most noticeable are the ones that are just so deposit heavy. There's this thought leader in B2B marketing, Dave Gearhart, and DGMG, right? He has spent the last probably 5 years depositing into the market just with thought leadership, with his podcast, right? He takes kind of a very, inbound purist approach almost that is just add a ton of value, gain a really big following of loyal followers, right? And then, whenever he has a launch, all he has to do is post a LinkedIn post and he gets, however many likes and subscribers, and he just has that captive audience ready to go whenever he wants, right? I think, honestly, you've done a great job of that with T2D3 and Kalungi in the early days, right? That was purely based on a lot of the attention that we got was purely based on the value that you brought with a lot of your thought leadership, right, with the book. And that drives a lot of our demand, still to this day. I think that those are the really noticeable ones where you just go really deposit heavy, but those can take a long time to build, right? It can take years to get that audience up and running, to get enough content out into the world, and to get the credibility, I guess, that you can then start to really withdraw from in a meaningful way. And then I guess the other thing to just keep in mind, right, is that as B2B marketing has progressed and technology has gotten better, right, attribution has gotten better and has gotten more and more important. And it's getting to the point in some scenarios, right, where CEOs don't really want to consider anything that can't be tied to revenue, right? And so how do you deposit the right way, right, and get enough air cover, I guess, from an executive standpoint to let yourself do that and add the value that you can then withdraw from? So that was a lot, but maybe let's start with, from your perspective, what the importance of the deposit is in the grand scheme of marketing, right? Like how you think about adding value in that relationship. And then I've got some more questions for you that get to dig deeper in.
It's a great topic, Brian. The first definition we got to kind of agree on is what's the definition of actually depositing and withdrawing in the kind of relationship account, right? For a lot of people, giving and getting something out of a relationship means different things depending on the type of relationship and maybe the maturity of the relationship. When you are actually in the early stage of a relationship, when you're just starting to get to know someone, giving versus getting might actually mean very different things versus when you are in a later stage of a relationship. Let me give you an example. When you're launching a product and you're in an early stage category, the people you're looking for to help you are usually called innovators. They're people who are not necessarily going to buy the product. They're not necessarily using it to solve a problem. They're there to basically confirm that they believe the same things that you believe. They're kind of going to vote with their time because they care about the same problem and they're going to help you almost finish the problem, which is a very different way of participation. And so what they would define as you giving them something is you're kind of giving them an ability to be part of it. They're not necessarily expecting you to give them the product. They're almost expecting you to allow them to help them to let them give you the product. Right. Have you ever heard the notion of, well, you have, because you and I have talked about this before, that the best way to make a friend is to actually ask for help, not to give help. Right? And that principle is actually at work here, right? That is not always the best way to make a friend is to provide help. Sometimes because people actually don't necessarily want to be helped, they want to be relevant. Right? They want to be useful. People want to have meaning. People want to have a role to play, right? They want to be relevant. So if you think of the customer journey or the buyer's journey or the journey in kind of a marketing context of a prospect or a suspect, making sure that you're not providing almost too much help, where it becomes preachy. You know, you're not telling people what to do, but you're almost providing too much help that it becomes a little bit that people don't feel that they're in charge enough anymore. It's a tricky balance to strike. On the other hand, if people are really specifically asking, like they just want to know what the price is or something, you actually just give the answer. You have to just tell them what the price is, right? Don't like beat around it, right? Don't kind of lead people into different directions. So it's tricky. So I just wanted to this is a very long way of me saying the definition of depositing into the relation or communication bank account and withdrawing from means very different things depending on where you kind of are in the journey, and asking yourself, what is this person going to define as getting something versus giving something? And sometimes giving something versus getting something can be the same thing. So contributing content, for example, or answering a question can in some context mean that they feel they're giving something, and in other context means that they're getting something. Does that make sense, Brian?
Absolutely. It's all, I feel like a lot of our conversations always revert back to this, but it's about knowing your ideal customer profile and your prospects and what they care about. And if those prospects are, we're talking about really like crossing the chasm and the market maturity almost, but if those are early in the curve, right, then you should be basically just opening the door to be a part of what you're working on, right? And that gives them almost the bug to get in there and play around and build an amazing solution, which is what they want. But if, of course, they're more mature, then they're more skeptical and they will require you to kind of do more,
you're just an educated buyer who's trying to find the cheapest version of a certain solution, or they know that out of 5 products, they know there's only 2 or 3 that are going to really check all the requirements that they need, and out of those they want to just get the best one, right? And they're very particular about how much time they want to spend evaluating the options, right? You have to deposit into that relationship by providing the right information and providing it relatively friction-free, right? And it's a very different trade-off that you're making there. Because also those people, you can ask something in return, right? If you do that really well and you do it very fast, then you can ask them for a reference and for, to help you make the content better and all that. But not if you not help them also get what they want.
And I think to your point, right, that we've talked about like the type of deposit that you can do, but also kind of the more valuable the deposit, the quicker you can turn around and say, okay, now let me ask for something, basically, not to make all relationships into pure transactions. But we can talk about, say, cold emails, because everyone gets buried by those every single day, right? Everyone has read the cold email that they read the subject line and they know that somebody's just trying to sell them something without actually thinking about them, and they don't get past the third word. But I think all of us have read that email that is very clearly not trying to sell them something and actually has something very interesting to give them, whether it's, a free copy of a book or a template to solve a problem that they haven't been able to solve for years, or an introduction to someone, right, that would be a worthwhile conversation, right? Then, of course, you'll read the email and you'll click, right? I think everyone always gets so hung up on like channels and tactics and testing, which are all obviously important, but sometimes they can lose the forest through the trees in that, like, at the end of the day, what really matters and what's going to get somebody to click or to convert, right, or to change is the actual value that you are proposing, and does it line up with what they want? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it also is about genuine interest in the success of your audience, right? This only works if you believe that there's a 1 and 1 is 3 type of transaction possible, where the sum of the parts can... And that's what product market fit really is, Brian, right? Product market fit really means that between the things you have to offer and the challenges that your audience faces, that if those two things come together, value gets created for both parties. That wasn't there before, right? And then the communication between those parts to establish that product market fit, to establish that transaction, and that ongoing relationship can only be positive, right? And then finding the right way to establish that transaction, that's really where this kind of depositing and withdrawing in the way you communicate and the way you do whatever your marketing campaign, etc., becomes really easier. But again, to your earlier point, starts with, do you actually know who you're trying to reach, who you're trying to service, and how you're going to be relevant for that audience, and how they will be relevant for you.
It's almost like the magic powder that you can put on a marketing team or even a company, right? Like if you look at it from like a Gantt chart perspective or an initiatives perspective, right? All of this stuff, like the campaigns would probably look the same, right? And even the assets types would look the same when you're looking at it from the top down. But it's really like you're saying, that viewpoint of, I really care about my prospect. I want to make their life easier. And everything that I do in terms of building the product, building my campaigns, the types of content that I build has to be with that goal in mind. And if it is, then I feel like magically campaigns perform better and people click more and conversations are better and they'll convert more. But if not, right, then you just have a team that's both on product and sales and across the board, across the revenue board, that's just going through the motions, and they'll run the same campaigns, they'll run the same content types, but they won't get the conversions, right? Because it won't actually be valuable for the reader or the prospect.
And then do the things that are not easy, right? Because I have actually responded to cold emails or to cold outreach and then not gotten any engagement. Because sometimes I get a cold outreach, which is actually something I might actually be interested in. And then I kind of reply, and then there's no engagement. And that's the worst, right? I say, okay, and I'm actually making an effort now.
Is there any difference in your mind with how value is provided with, say, a marketing team of 1 versus a marketing team of 100, right? Do you think that it's just the same mentality and it just applies itself differently? Or is there anything that, maybe once the scale of the 50 plus person marketing team comes around, then you can dedicate more time to just like pure value add initiatives? Is there any difference in your mind, or is it all comes from the same place and it has to be consistent throughout?
I don't know. I think there's risk involved with both extremes, and I think everything in between. If you have a very small team, there's a risk that you're trying to do too many things, which then relatively quickly become transactional. Maybe you run the risk of withdrawing too much, right? Doing things automated, not really thinking enough about the quality of the information, of your outreach, of the ICP, the personas that you build, right? The thoughtfulness of your content calendar, etc. And then if the team is too big, you probably have a risk of things getting disconnected and the left side of the team not knowing what the right side does, right? And maybe the quality of the people not being consistent in the team, right. What they believe. And so I don't know. Brian, both I think come with their own challenges. I don't know if it's really large or small is better or worse.
Both have pros and cons. What about if, a lot of this starts with the founder, right? If you go back to the company's infancy, a lot of it can be the deposit culture, right? Can come from the founder, and they're kind of they start it, right? And then it's carried out throughout the rest of the organization. I think when the founder is really passionate about it, right? Like as you were with Kalungi, right? Then the rest follow, and it is so easy to make it continue. But what about when there is a founder who, I don't know, maybe an introverted head, right? Or somebody who doesn't want the spotlight, or even doesn't have a lot to say on the topic, right? How, I guess, if you were the CMO or the CRO of that, how would you push hard on the value add side of your materials?
Leading by example is where it all started. Like what you're doing. You're doing this podcast, right? Is in the Kalungi team and making it clear that when you want to provide value and understand your audience and make sure you deposit into the relationship bank account, that it starts with you as the leader, and making that a non-negotiable, and being also very aware of how everybody in your team does that in their own way, right? With their own dialects and their own superpowers, etc. But I think that's very important, Brian, and to keep doing that even when your company grows. And I think that's the most important. And then the other, to be mindful of that everybody in the team will do that in different ways, and that there will be new ways of doing that you as the founder or the leader may not even understand. Took me a while to appreciate that TikTok might be a good channel also for me to maybe do some things on, and now I think I'm enjoying it. I don't know, it's not done very well. I think it's still not necessarily the place where my content and my style is best suited, but I don't think it's bad anymore. So, but it took me a while to appreciate that.
Yeah, it is. I think I like setting the right example, and you just got to go for it and produce, right? But also, I think the point of everyone will do it in their own way, I think is so valid, right? Just because when I first started this, or you encouraged me to start this content journey, right? My philosophy was like, nobody's going to want to hear what I have to say. I don't have the experience or the thoughts or whatever, right, that would make me relevant enough to say. But you were right in pushing me in that, and everyone else, right? Even, a marketing manager has plenty to share, right, about their domain. And the same thing about product architect or a UI, right? Like all these people have knowledge over their own domains. And so if they can, as long as they can apply that the right way into and know the prospect and the customer well enough, right, then value can be added. Absolutely. And so that can obviously apply to content, but it also should be very much applied to, right, people's day-to-day work and how they interact with the customer.
The other thing, Brian, which is really important to realize, why this topic is also important about this kind of relationship bank account and the communication bank account, is we are all B2B marketers, right? That's what we do. We communicate, we market in the context of businesses, selling and marketing and driving decisions and customer success. But it's all in the end about people, right? There's really B2C. The only difference is in B2B, and we say there's a lot that it's people who spend other people's money, but other than that, it's still people. It's people communicating with people. And so there's individuals who want to be seen, who want to be heard, who want to be relevant, who want to feel useful, right? So the other way to think about when you're thinking about the withdrawals and deposit into a relationship bank account, are you making someone feel useful? And that's why also asking someone for help is actually not a bad thing. Even in an outbound email, if you actually ask someone to help you, if it's in a genuine way, if it makes someone feel needed, feel special, that might actually be far more effective as providing all kinds of unasked for advice,
Yeah, I mean, I think it always goes back to the core principles, but knowing your prospect, knowing your ICP, knowing what they want. And I really like the perspective of like find a way to make the relationship greater than the sum of its parts, right? Because that's what it is at the end of the day, right? If you can get to a point where you get to your relationship makes it more beneficial for both parties, then it's a win-win and it's a no-brainer, right? And the tactics and everything else will follow, but that is the core principle that you have to get in line before you'll really see real success through your marketing efforts. Okay. Thank you to Adriana Valerio for producing this episode and the Kalungi team for helping us make this whole thing work. And of course, you for choosing to spend your time with us. As a reminder, all the links we mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. And if you want to submit or vote on a question you'd like us to answer, you can do that at kalungi.com/podcast. Every time we record, we take one of the top 3 topics and jam on it. Thanks again.